Chapter 11. Avoiding full-brim stomach. Dada recommends that if one is unable to observe fast, the preferable course helpful for inner and spiritual progress is to follow the practice of partially filling the stomach while eating and avoiding a stomach filled to the brim. A seeker asks Dada to elaborate the concept further. Dada says, one may divide 4 parts of stomach. 2 parts for food, such as rice, vegetables, chapati, 1 part for water, and 1 part should be left empty for movement of air. And if one eats fully without leaving sufficient vacant space for movement of air in the stomach, then one's alertness level will come down and one would feel drowsy after meals. The practice of partially filling the stomach, staying somewhat hungry while eating, is very helpful, and the test for it is that one shouldn't feel drowsy after having meal. Dada says, fasting is not compulsory. However, one may go for it for weight loss or as a remedy for some illness. The practice of staying somewhat hungry means when you are very much hungry and feel like eating 3 sandwiches, then cut down 1 and eat just 2 only. And sometimes you are less hungry and feel like having only 2 sandwiches, then have 1 and a half only. So, whatever quantity you may feel like having, cut down some quantity and be content with lesser intake than your urge prior to eating. Otherwise, you will feel drowsiness and lack requisite mindfulness all through the day. As such also, people are lacking the necessary level of mindfulness in general, and that will further go down with the drowsiness added due to overeating. In such circumstances, how can they remain alert and focused? Dada hails the practice of following partially filling of the stomach and explains further about it. In this practice, one has not to avoid eating, but to only eat when one gets hungry, and that too less in quantity than one's urge. When one feels hungry, one should satisfy the digestive fire with small quantities of food, so that one remains alert and doesn't feel drowsy. The enlightened ones have shown this wonderful practice and hailed it as a great penance for spiritual progress, as also for keeping a sound health. Our stomach is not a storage tank that needs to be filled to the brim. A fellow asked, but when I eat less, then I feel emptiness in my stomach. Dada answered, chew your food well, and then you will feel that your stomach has got filled up. On chewing the morsel thoroughly, the food particles swell inside the stomach and it gets filled up. If one eats 2 bread rolls without chewing properly, and the other fellow chews only 1 bread roll, thoroughly chewing it, it gives the equal nutrition while getting imbibed more efficiently. Dada says, for this reason I am chewing the morsels thoroughly and making the food liquefied before passing it to my stomach. It gives me enhanced taste, making eating delightful. One can make it a practice of finishing a single bread roll by the times others would have eaten up 2 bread rolls. This way you will eat less, taking the same time with fellow diners, and this will give you a feeling of satiation too, while rendering you the advantages of this admirable practice of partially filling of stomach. Dadaji says, if you want to choose between fasting and staying somewhat hungry, then opt for the latter. Eat less than your hunger in both your lunch as well as dinner. This practice will help in keeping you always mindful. Some people fast for the whole day but overeat the next day and even the previous dinner. The stomach that got emptied is then filled to the brim the very next day as if stuffing a bag. What a contradiction! Dadaji says, I have always followed this practice of partially filling my stomach while taking meals, so that the awareness level remains unabated. It is true that the soul doesn't need food, and it is the physical body that needs food. Yet, if the body becomes overly fleshy, it tends to override the tendencies for spiritual advancement. With intake of just a moderate quantity of food, the laziness recedes and the intellect shines up. Otherwise, it may go dull and lose the requisite sharpness to grasp subtle understanding. Dadaji says that the person takes the kind of food according to his or her own temperament, and with intake of food, likewise, the kind of one's temperament is reinforced, and it goes on. One who has a liking for sweet taste will prefer more sweets. That promotes a flow of windy energy, which fosters further liking for sweet eatables. So all these likings, or otherwise, depend on inclinations inherent in the kind of natural temperament of one's body and require careful moderation.